¿Qué es Revact? Revact es un movimiento, no solo una marca de ropa, es libertad de expresión. Sí hablamos de política porque nos afecta. ¿Cómo te vas a llamar artista o marca de ropa cubana si no defiendes los derechos humanos de tu propio pueblo? Revact es cada cubano que lucha por un pedacito de pan en Cuba. Y ¿sabes qué? Aunque estemos aquí en Miami, vamos a luchar por tu derecho a hablar.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of Voice Visions. I am Voice of G. I am here with a creative, a marketing genius, Mr. Damian Maytin.
Hello, guys. I'm pretty good overall, man.
Yeah. So, I want to go back, right? I want to tell everybody how I met you. I met you at a show at the spot Winwood. You were a vendor. You were selling your Revac clothing line. I hit you up. I saw you had the hat, so I bought a hat and a shirt. And the shirt is a little too tight nowadays, so I couldn't bring it to show you guys today. But that's how we met. And now here we are again, 2 years later at Roots, and it's amazing. It's a small world. It's crazy how things turn out. How did you get connected to create? I mean, you do so much, but how did you start with clothing?
Well, it all started 3 years ago in 2018, and I had the idea of creating a brand that had to do with Cuba and with activism. And I said, okay, how can we bring the Cuban youth a sense of nostalgia about Cuba and about Cuban cartoons and about what's going on in Cuba? And so I decided to create Revact, which it means revolutionary action. And so I wanted to have young people, I wanted to have a theme that attracted young people. And I said, okay, I think the word revolution is a little bit controversial, but it attracts young people because they say, okay, we know that Fidel had his revolution, but what does it really mean to be revolutionary? And so I wanted to sort of create Revact to explain what it means to be revolutionary and not to have to be with the Cuban Revolution necessarily.
Okay. And I know, like with your clothing line, you have the different designs, you have different characters that represent different themes or different classic movies, right? I can't remember the vampire one.
Yeah, Vampiros en La Habana.
Vampiro en La Habana. And tell us, like, how did that get started, like implementing these classic characters and like Cuban pop culture, I guess, into these shirts. Like, how did that idea come about?
Well, so, first of all, I want to give you the gift right here. It's our Vampiros en La Habana t-shirt.
All right.
So,
got the package and everything.
Yeah, man.
I'll definitely be opening this and kind of displaying it for the viewers. But thank you so much, by the way. This is dope.
You're welcome, man. Yeah, that one was actually the third one that we came out with. And so the whole idea behind the cartoons is I was born in Cuba, raised there. I came here when I was 9, and so when I was like 14 years old, I started looking up Cuban cartoons in YouTube because I was like, all right, I gotta see what I watched when I was, it's this sense of like you want to go back to your country but you can't, so you do it through cartoons and through YouTube videos about Cuba. And so, the Cuban cartoons really mean a lot to me because since I left there when I was a child, that's pretty much all I had. And so I got that idea from being raised in Cuba. And then I said, okay, we know that Cubans love their cartoons. We know that Cubans love, obviously, their coffee, their food, but the cartoons have a bigger meaning. Why? Because they always had a political meaning behind. These cartoons were made and sponsored pretty much by the Cuban government, and so it was also a form of indoctrinating children. Yes, yeah, they got that from the Soviet Union, yeah. So they pretty much tried to indoctrinate us through cartoons, and I said, okay, so I know that they tried to indoctrinate us, but I'm going to flip it a little bit, and I'm going to switch the script to let them know that yes, we love love our culture, we love our cartoons, but at the same time, we don't agree with your government, we don't agree with your propaganda.
And there is somewhat of a revolution now. I mean, it's been years ongoing, right? But people are starting to wake up in Cuba. I mean, I follow Los Pichi brothers, right? And they've been posting it as well. Big shout out to Los Pichi brothers. They been posting people really taking a stand against the government, and in ways that we've probably, at least social media has helped us to see that we haven't before. Talk about el movimiento de San Isidro, what it means, and what's really going on over there.
Yeah, so I mean, for more than 60 years already, actually even before that, even before Fidel took power, Cubans have always been fighting and fighting and fighting, because before Fidel there was also a dictatorship, and so Cubans have been fighting for years. But after the Cuban Revolution happened in the 1960s, obviously Fidel expropriated all of the companies over there, and he really took power. He said that Cuba was going to be a democracy, but then a year passed by, 2 years passed by, 4 years passed by, 50 years passed by, and he's still in power, and his family is still in power, and we only have a one-party system. And so, yes, Cubans have been fighting for years, but the moment right now is unique because it's a movement made up of artists. Artists that want change, artists that want freedom of expression, artists that want to be able to have the right to have rights. And so I think that's what makes it unique. Before, it was a little bit more violent with the Cold War and people actually going there and trying to fight the government, trying to kill Fidel. But now it's a bit different. Now it's a movement of young people, people that are leftists, people that are rightists, trying to change the country, because they say this is not about left and right politics. This is about human rights. This is about having the right to choose, having the right to speak, and having the right to have basic freedoms that they took away from us.
I was actually wondering too, el movimiento San Isidro. San Isidro, what is that, a location in Cuba? Is there an event behind that name? Like what? I don't know. It's not that I know. I just don't know. It's not a leading question, but I want everyone to be informed, of course.
Yeah, so San Isidro is actually, it's a city within Havana, and San Isidro came about, it was made up of artists that it's sort of like a Wynwood, so they started doing graffitis, they started doing festivals over there, about art, about graffiti, and it's just a place that's very unique in Havana, because not everywhere in Havana you can express yourself in that way. And so Movimiento San Isidro was also founded in 2018, and it was primarily artists that were doing shows for kids. They were just trying to infuse culture into that city even more. But later on, as the government tried to control more and more the artists, they said, we're not going to take this. We're artists, we want our freedoms, we want to be able to make art without an agenda made up by the dictatorship over there. So.
I know that there is one of the artists, his name slips my mind right now, but and I think you had posted on one of your pages, like he was with a doctor because he was doing like a hunger strike, and the doctor was saying that he's medically the state really has been taking care of him, and he's rescinded his messages against the government, and unfortunately you watch the video, you could tell that the guy is just not himself, and he's either drugged or he's not himself, and it's sad to see that, but it's also incredible to see that, because like I said, through social media, we're starting to really see things. As myself, I'm Cuban American. Even though I was born here, I still feel connected over there. And is there any update to his health? To his, I know, like I said, this is stuff that is posted, and I'm sure it gets deleted right away. And
yeah, so his name is Luis Manuel Otero Alcántara, and I believe he's been in the hospital already in El Calixto Garcia in La Habana for 28 days. And he was doing a hunger strike, a hunger and thirst strike. And the government pretty much came in, grabbed his artwork, destroyed it. And after they did that, actually, was when he started the hunger strike. A couple days in, I'm not sure how many days, but a couple days into the hunger and thirst strike, the government also went into his home and took him away. It wasn't like, oh, he was feeling bad and he went to the hospital for them to take care of him. No, they actually went in and they took him away and they took him to the hospital. And then obviously they started posting videos with him, so that the world might have this illusion almost that, oh, the Cuban healthcare system is taking care of him, when in reality he never asked for that. They took him away, and now he is pretty much it's almost like a jail right now. And the state security in Cuba is working together with the healthcare system to hold him captive. Every video that's coming out is done by the state security in Cuba. No video has been done by him or by any of his friends or of artists that support him. All of the videos have been coming out of straight up from the Cuban government. And so, this is them acting how they usually act. They try to control the situation. They try to control the dialogue. And now, they are trying to control him so that this movement can slow down. But in reality, what they are doing is that they are making it stronger, because it is obvious that Luis Manuel Otero Alcántara is not doing well. They put up a video of him, and like you said, he was not acting as he usually acts. I believe that he's either drugged or they are simply controlling every word that he says. And so, it's really moving the international community to talk about him and to talk about all of the injustices that are made by the Cuban government together with the Cuban healthcare system that works together with the state security.
I wanted to ask as well, because you manage different pages that post these videos and stuff like that, and you were posting even on your personal page all the time different videos. How do you discern what's real and what's not? There's a lot of, we've seen, let's say, just for example, this past presidential campaign, Facebook, etc., coronavirus, all this information out there. How do you, in your case, discern what is real and what is not real?
Well, the first thing I look at is, where is the source coming from? If the source is coming from the government, then I know that there's an agenda behind it, and it's not an agenda that I want to be in favor in. So, I discern it by seeing people who are inside of Cuba that work for independent media. And that's really how I look at it. I look at independent media in Cuba, and then it's very hard to tell, because everything is controlled over there. The media is controlled by the government. Everything is controlled, so they don't even allow journalists to go in there and to talk about things from their perspective. It always has to have like an agenda behind it. And so I look at pages like ADN Cuba, Ciber Cuba, all of these pages that are independent. I trust them because they actually go in and they pick journalists that choose not to work for the Cuban government, but that choose to have a more unbiased opinion on the situation in Cuba. And these journalists might be left-wing or right-wingers. They don't have to be any. They don't have to have any particular. They don't have to lean towards any particular ideology, but at least they show what's really happening over there. And so that's why I follow independent activists and journalists, and that's really how I'm able to see the truth that's coming out of Cuba.
One of the videos that at least caught my interest, and I saw it on Los Pichi Brothers page, and unfortunately it's like almost if you revolt, if you decide to take a stand, you have security forces or the police, right, that won't let you out of your own house, and you have neighbors who are, hey, it's here in the United States, or at least in Miami, you can, maybe not trust your neighbor, you shouldn't trust anybody, but you can every now and then you hear stories of people, going to their neighbor for a cup of sugar or whatever, right? That's our custom here in the United States. Over there, you can't even trust your own neighbors because your own neighbors will snitch on you, will call the police, and it's incredible. It's mind-boggling. And I also wanted to ask as well, as a Cuban American, and we see it every 4 years, a lot of the politicians, whether they may be left wing or right wing, it's almost as if they tap into the PTSD that we have, right? Like I said, I wasn't born in Cuba, but through my mother's experience, she left Cuba in 1966. She was 6 years old, and at that time, she was able to actually take a flight. She left early enough where she was able to take a flight, and she had to go through 2 countries. She had to go through Spain and Costa Rica, and then come to the United States. And and politically, we don't always align eye to eye. She's my mom. I love her to death. But I see that every 4 years, politicians sometimes they take advantage of our PTSD, or Venezuelans as well, and we have to discern what is real and what is not. When they say that this politician is socialist or communist, you know what I'm saying? Like, are they really? Are they not? It's such a weird thing that we have to experience. Like, it's almost PTSD every 4 years or every 2 years, every election cycle. How do you feel about that? What's your input on that? Have you ever felt that way? Like, wow, this politician is trying to bring that out of me?
Mm-hmm. Well, regarding that subject, I want to clarify. It's not PTSD or trauma. I don't believe it's that they're trying to bring out like that PTSD or that drama, only because it's still happening today. Today Venezuela is still a dictatorship. Today Cuba is still a dictatorship. So it's not really
Post-traumatic.
It's still happening today. It's still a dictatorship. They are still abusing people's rights, and it's something that we gotta talk about no matter what no matter what side of the aisle you are on. Now, regarding politicians, they are always gonna try to take advantage of that, whether it's Republican or Democrat. There are politicians that have made a career out of the freedom of Cuba, and trying to do the freedom, trying to make freedom for Cuba happen. And so we just gotta discern. We have to discern, and we have to also decide what's really best for us, and what's in it for us. Because here in South Florida, obviously, people see a Cuban bloc and a Venezuelan bloc that if they don't win that bloc, they are going to lose Florida. And so they're going to try to at least talk about things that are of our interest, but are they really going to do it? That's really what we have to look at. Have they done it before? Have they done anything for Cuba before? Or are they really going to actually bring an action plan towards the freedom of Cuba? And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes they get stuck in the rhetoric, but they don't actually create an action plan. And I think that as Cuban exiles or as Cuban Americans, we have to look out for politicians that try to make an actual action plan. Another thing is, we cannot vote, I believe, for a politician simply because of Cuba. We have to realize that we live in the United States, and that we also are looking out for our interests as American citizens. So I think that both sides have to be balanced. I always say that the focus always needs to be human rights. If a politician wants to do negotiations with the Cuban government, it's very hard for me to side with that politician, because he's trying to do it's like a government trying to negotiate with Hitler, a government trying to negotiate with Mao or with Stalin.
I've heard a lot of criticisms, and like I said, we don't gotta go left or right or anything like that. But let's say in the last, just for example, let's say 3 or 4 presidents, right? They've had their own way of doing things, and that's just it's gonna keep going. But one big argument or one big conversation that's always going around is the embargo. Like, do we end it? Do we continue it? You know what I'm saying? And every 4 years we end it, or we open it up again. And then I remember and this is, I guess, maybe a little off topic, but rest in peace, my beautiful grandmother. I remember she's Colombian, by the way, and she was enraged when Obama went to Cuba, and she's Colombian, and she was enraged, and she was just like, why would you sit down and talk with a murderer or a government that murders its own people, etc., etc. And that's just an interesting dynamic. Every president has their good and their bad, but it's from our perspective, it's almost like it's hard. It's really hard to make the decisions with these politicians and stuff. Like you said, that they've made a career out of exploiting, that conversation.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not concentrating on human rights. They're just talking. They're just selling you a car.
Right. Yeah, no, always, the argument comes in about the embargo, should we have the embargo? Should we not have the embargo? And I don't know how many talks and how many arguments I've had about this issue, and I still, to this day, I don't know what's right. I don't know what's right for Cuba, It's frustrating because as Cubans, you're like, what should we do? Should we leave the embargo? Should we maintain it? Should we not? I'll tell you this: the embargo makes sense. It has a purpose for why it is there. You cannot negotiate with a country that stole all your corporations, all your companies, because why would you trust them? So there's a reason why it is there. But at the same time, we also want to trade with Cuba, and we want the Cuban people, in a sense, to make their own businesses and to flourish. But at the same time, we know what's going to happen after that. We don't want China. We don't want a China in Cuba. We don't want the Cuban regime to tax the heck out of the entrepreneurs and to invest it on military. We don't want them to invest it in state security. And so we have to be very careful when it comes to that issue, and we have to know what to do. I don't believe that we should, at this moment, lift the embargo. And what Obama did, it offended a lot of people because of the way that he did it. He didn't go into the streets of Cuba and talk to the people of Cuba. He went straight to the government, and he went to watch a baseball game with Raúl Castro. How can you be happy about that? And so I understand why a lot of people got offended. So again, politicians have to be very careful, and we as the exile community, we have to stand strong with our beliefs, and we have to stand strong that we want, with our purpose, which is we want to bring human rights to Cuba first, and then business comes later. That's my point of view on that.
Asking, it's going to be our final question because we're flying by here. It's incredible. But maybe somebody who's not a Cuban American or Cuban at all, from another country or whatever, they don't have the experience, right? The lived experience or the experience of their grandparents or whatnot, right? And they're in this country, they're on social media all the time, they're on Instagram. How could they help? Like, how could an ordinary person like you or I help in a sense?
Well, share as much as you can, and be conscious about the situation in Cuba. I know that we cannot do much from here because we're not inside of Cuba, but you have no idea how much impact you are making if you share some content, if you support not the Cuban government, not the systems or the institutions that they created, but the Cuban people that are dissenting, the Cuban people that are speaking their mind. And I want to very quickly mention Luis Robles, a young person, I believe he's on his late 20s. He just went out into Havana with a sign that said "No more repression," and he's been jailed already for months just for holding a sign. So when you look at Cuba, just think about that. Do you wanna work with a government like that? Do you wanna go to a place that keeps on oppressing people like that, or do you wanna change the system so that the people can be free and the people can actually enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy here in the United States?
Thank you so much, Damian, for coming on here and speaking your truth. We covered so much in so little, and actually, one more question. Why not, right? Is your connection to Roots, because you are rooted in here. I remember I said the same thing, I think, with Lotus. that certain people here and subconscious too are just rooted here. Talk about your experience so far with Roots Miami Kava.
Well, I came into this place actually, but it was in the house when I first came in. It's like a few blocks away, and I mean I love the community vibe. I love that the bartenders were very friendly, and you know I like that it was a non-alcoholic because it's not like you're coming here to get fucked up. You know, you're coming here, you drink your kava, it relaxes you a little bit, and then you can get to work. You can get to work on your music. You can do school, and so you know it's a pretty safe space for people, for artists, for creatives. And my personal experience is it's been that. It's been just like the people are great. The products that they have are pretty amazing, and it's just a good place to be at when you don't want to go to a bar or you don't want to go to a club.
It has that perfect work and play balance, I guess you could say. All right. Thank you so much, Damian. Again.
Thank you, man.
We'll make it official with the handshake, and definitely follow him, guys. Are you also on Facebook, or you're on Twitter as well?
Yes, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Reddit, Tumblr, and Pinterest. It's all Revact Cuba. So it's REV as in very ACT CUBA. Revact Cuba.
All right, guys. Big shout out again, Damian. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
me. You guys have a good night.